I am a two-time breast cancer survivor and a one-time marriage survivor. I am originally from Chicago, and I've lived in Brooklyn for about 20 years now. Yeah, Brooklyn in the house. I'm a writer, actor, filmmaker, and breastie since 2018, and really happy to be here with you guys. So thank you for being here. Today's topic of discussion hits home for me, and I'm sure hits home for everyone here. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here right now. It's real, it's raw, and it's something that I've personally found to be just as difficult as cancer and treatment itself, is navigating the relationship, identity, and intimacy aspect afterwards. It's not just about sex and dating, it's about self-worth, it's about boundaries, it's about finding the strength within yourself to walk away from relationships that may no longer serve you, we're going to be exploring navigating divorce, breakups after diagnosis, reclaiming your identity and intimacy, and how our experiences clarify what we deserve in a partnership and more. And that can be, platonic or not, or our relationship with ourselves, because sometimes we don't realize that we're not giving ourselves enough. A few general notes before we begin. I just want to ensure that our session today is as accessible as possible and inclusive. So if you have any specific needs or require assistance, let us know. You can reach out to Jennifer, the access lead, or another member of the camp. And if you need to take a break or go to the bathroom at any point, obviously you're welcome to do so. Don't have to raise your hand like in school. We'll do a Q&A session at the end. If you want to ask a question, you just raise your hand and someone will come by with a microphone. If you're not comfortable asking a question out loud, you can come up and see any one of us after the panel, and we'll be happy to talk to you guys. We'll do about a 15-minute Q&A at the end, I think. Yeah. So, let's meet the panelists. You guys ready? Cool. All right, we'll go down the row. We'll do some quick introductions. Just give us your name, brief history, whatever you want to share.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Karen. I am located in New Jersey. Professionally, I am an art director, and I work in the marketing and advertising space. And I am also a two-time cancer survivor. I went from a breast cancer diagnosis right into a gynecologic cancer diagnosis as well.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm 27 years old. I currently live in Chicago, Illinois. I'm a BRCA1 previvor, about 2.5 years post-op from my non-nipple sparing bilateral double mastectomy. Professionally, I'm a pediatric board-certified behavior analyst, and this is my second year at camp, and I'm so happy to be here with you all.
Hi, I'm Stacy. I'll be 33 in a couple weeks, and I am newly a thriver. I was originally diagnosed in 2021, early stage. I am working in the nonprofit space with out-of-school time programs, and this is my third time at Camp Breastie, and I can't wait to dive into this topic with you all.
I'm Deltra. I'm 39 years old, visiting from Connecticut. This is my second time at camp. Excited to be here. I am a triple negative metastatic breast cancer thriver. This year makes 6 years, which is amazing. Yes. I'm a mama to 5 girls, brand new grandma to another girl. Just really excited to talk about this topic. I am not a survivor of cancer. I don't connect with that word, but I am also a survivor of marriage.
And here we are, thriving. Okay, so that leads actually into my first question. We'll go in no particular order, just if you relate to the question, just feel free to speak out. Were you partner dating, and how did your diagnosis or your experience as a breastie impact your relationship with we'll start with others, and then we'll get into self.
I can start.
Sure.
So when I was originally diagnosed with my early stage diagnosis in 2021, I was engaged for about a month. And so I went through treatment, planning a wedding, and everybody told me that the wedding was my silver lining to having cancer. And I struggled with that a lot because that's just not how I ever pictured planning a wedding. And it kind of painted me as this cancer bride. So my relationship my engagement was kind of tainted at that point, I think, going through that treatment process. And then we did get married in 2022, and we've gone through some rough patches and a separation, and currently working through that now as we're navigating my new Thriver diagnosis, my metastatic diagnosis. So my relationship and my cancer journey is very much intertwined, and I tried so hard to keep them separate for so long, and I thought the biggest problem was the cancer, but I think through diving into the cancer journey in the community, I came to realize that the bigger issues were within my relationship, and that led me to explore options.
Did you think that were you trying to keep it separate for yourself, or were you trying to keep it separate because you felt like that's what people wanted of you?
I definitely tried to keep it separate for my partner, for sure.
Yeah.
He struggled a lot with medical trauma of his own, and my diagnosis was really difficult for him, and I allowed him to kind of take ownership over my diagnosis. So I tried to keep it separate as much as possible so that it was easier for him to deal with the fact that I had cancer.
Yeah, same. That's why I asked. Does anyone else want to speak on your... It was not a good situation. I will say, I mean, it was a toxic marriage, but I think cancer was like the final nail, for sure. Put on a face, you know. Does anyone else want to speak on that first question? I can give you a refresher, just, you know, relationships, how'd they change?
I can speak on it. As a young pre-viver, I feel like I'm in a little bit of a different space. So I found out I was BRCA1 after I moved to a new state with no family and with a now ex-boyfriend. I found out I had BRCA1, got thrown into, you know, all the screening process. And then at my second ever appointment, they found a lump in my left breast. It ended up being a benign tumor, but I went to that appointment by myself while my partner focused on whatever else he was focusing on at the time. And I felt like that was my final straw. There was obviously like other things that were happening during that relationship, but going to an appointment as a 25-year-old woman with no family around to find out if she has breast cancer or not by yourself while you have a partner that should be there for you was just like my final, this is not what I want. And it was a little bit of a wake-up call almost, because life is so short, and I think sometimes we forget that until we have these little moments that come up. And I felt like I was alive for a really long time, but I was not living. And I felt like that gave me the kick in the butt that I needed. And so I ended that 6-year relationship pretty much right after that. I just thought it would be better to be by myself and to lean on my other support system than to simply settle because I feel like I have to.
Yeah, that's valid. I'm proud of you guys. Proud of everyone here. Okay, so going with that, because this is equally as important, or actually I think honestly it's more important, how did your relationship with yourself change?
Oh, go. I was just giving these newbies a chance to speak. I'm so proud of them. So my relationship with myself changed so much the more that I look back and think about it. At the time of my diagnosis, I had been married for a decade, and my whole identity was being wife, mother. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had been homeschooling our daughters, which I absolutely loved, but I wasn't carving out like time for whoever I was. And getting a cancer diagnosis, as Maggie just said, really makes you reevaluate things. And I really stopped and thought, I can't live life anymore expecting like a second act. Or, lots of moms do it where it's like, as soon as this baby is 18, like it's on and popping for me. Like I'm going to be living life. I'm going to be doing activities and stuff like that and having adventures. And I was like, oh, I am still Deltra. I'm like my own whole separate person outside of being my children's mother. And so I really had to figure out balancing that. And they had to learn to respect that. I'm 39. I've had my mother in my life my whole life, and there's still so much I don't know about her as a person, and I've been more intentional about getting to know her, and I've been really intentional about my daughters knowing me as a person and the things that I love, and seeing me go off like to this camp weekend, just being like, sayonara, like I'll see you guys when I get back. This is important for me to do for my mental well-being, and I do things for my physical well-being. And my marriage was also very toxic, and it was not benefiting anyone for me to stay in it, and it was really difficult. I always say it felt like starting over at a time where I had been told that it was like the end, getting my stage 4 diagnosis de novo. But I really started to see it as, instead of being fearful about flipping my whole life upside down, I started to just say, you know what, however much time I get to live in this like new life I build and create, it'll still be worth building and creating and starting all over. Like, who has the energy to go through a divorce? Who has the energy to date? And to live on their own, find a place to live, start working, all these things that I had not done in a very long time. But I'll never regret doing all of those things. And now I've been here for 6 years, and it's one of those things where you're like, you start today, because at the time I had no idea how much time I would have left. Nobody really does. But now it's 6 years later, and I highly recommend, choosing your peace, because having my own living space that I get to enjoy without someone in it, being toxic as hell, is very, is good for me as my actual treatment is. Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. I actually had never lived alone ever in my life until I was separated and then eventually divorced. That, I think, was probably the biggest gift that I could have ever gotten, because I don't know if I would have learned who I was, what I wanted. You think you know who you are until you realize you don't. So I mean, it's a blessing in disguise, I guess, in a way. But yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Going on the relationship with self, I want to get into, body image and self-trust, and how did that change for you? Did you see yourself a certain way prior to diagnosis, and then, during treatment, post? If you went through that, how did that change for you, or did it change?
Sure. I can
Yeah,
take this.
sure.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a, I don't say difficult question to answer, but being somebody who was always very physically active before my diagnoses, put me in a pretty interesting place, I think. Almost being annoyed at my body in one sense of how this can happen when I think that I'm so healthy, but yet at the same time equally proud of my body for all it was capable and able to do for me throughout my diagnoses. And I do really try to lean into that side more because it has served me so well. So I lean into that side more and appreciate all it has gotten through and all it continues to get me through.
It's a miracle, right? You
Yep.
stop and think about it. It is wild. Okay, let's dive into intimacy. That means something different for everybody, obviously. With intimacy, like I'm a Scorpio. So intimacy was kind of my identity before, or so I thought. Post-diagnosis, I identified, I had long hair, I had these breasts that I loved, I was very sexual, and I didn't realize that I had made that my identity until I lost it, until, everything was gone. And then I was like, who am I? And I looked in the mirror and I was like, but I'm still in here, but who is that person, And intimacy, I did not realize had been such a big part of my identity. So I had to figure out, what does intimacy look like to me now? And for me personally, it was finding out how to love myself and have a relationship with myself first. What did intimacy, did it look like something different to you guys before? Does it look, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, prior to the diagnosis, I thought intimacy was having sex with your partner. I thought that was the way that you connected with your partner, and that made a strong relationship. And after my diagnosis, I was 29 years old. I had gone through surgery, IVF, chemo, radiation. My body just no longer felt like my own. I was unfamiliar with it, and so it was difficult for me to be physically intimate with my partner due to those reasons. But what I ended up really discovering through therapy, hours and hours of therapy, is that my intimacy issues, I was using cancer kind of as my crutch for why I was having intimacy issues in my relationship. And I was not addressing what the real underlying issue in my relationship was. And instead of turning down physical intimacy because I didn't feel emotionally intimate with my partner, I was turning down physical intimacy because I had cancer, because I was in menopause, because of all the things that I could use as an excuse. I thought that could keep me at arm's length and keep me safe, because my body was just like rejecting it. I didn't want it, and if I was in the moment, I was physically rejecting the physical intimacy. And it took a really long time to understand that although I do have some things to explore with my body post-cancer or during cancer, I really had to listen to how I was feeling during those intimate moments. And the biggest struggle in our relationship is that I need emotional intimacy to be able to be physically intimate, and he always told me he needed physical intimacy to be emotionally intimate. So we were just never going to cross those paths. We were on a parallel, and that was a big discovery for me.
I just remember thinking, like, all I want you to do is touch my chest, but I can't feel my chest, and also I don't want you to do that. That's the last thing I want you to do. It's just like so conflicted. You don't know what you want anymore. You don't know who you are or what you want. Yeah, it's hard. Do you guys have any thoughts on intimacy before we move on to the...
I think intimacy for me has changed. Emotional intimacy and physical intimacy, I think they go together, obviously, like we just said. I think before my surgery, intimacy didn't mean as much to me, I guess. Specifically physical intimacy, I guess. I kind of was like, it is what it is. But then leaving a long-term relationship and also simultaneously amputating my chest, I think it made me kind of take a step back and be like, I have worked so hard to preserve this body that I have and to take care of it and to love it and to relearn it, that now it's a little bit harder for me to let people in that way. I've spent so long protecting it and nursing it back to health, doing all the things that I needed to do to get back to being myself. So it's hard to just let someone in on that when you don't really know if you can trust them with that.
Yeah, trust, right?
Yeah.
Boundaries, right? Those are things that come up out of this, whether or not, we had them before or we have them now. I definitely have boundaries that I did not used to have. It's energy. It's exhausting sharing. It's exhausting sharing your story, And for me personally, like, I don't know about you guys or any of you guys, but like, I was a people pleaser, and like, I didn't want people to be uncomfortable or, sad or look at me with pity. That was like probably the worst thing. I don't know why. But it was like, I was living for what other people thought of me more than what I thought of myself, which is what it sounds like was happening with all of us, unfortunately. Okay, well, going on that, I want to talk about what are ways that if, like, looking back on it now, And just thinking back, like, what discussions would you have if you could do it over, or if you could, you had to do it again, like, how would you set it up with someone so that you were like setting yourself up for success in navigating a partnership, romantic or platonic, where someone is potentially a caregiver? And how does, that's tough. Yeah, sure.
Sure. Sometimes maybe easier said than done, but trying to outlay what your needs are, right? It doesn't always mean that the other person or people are able to meet you, but trying to honor you for what it is that you need from them, hopefully, right? Because while you're going through something difficult, right, you need the best support of what's going to keep you in the best physical and the best mind space to help you get through it. So really, I think it's just putting it out there.
Yeah.
You have to let your partner or people in your life know what it is that you need from them.
Totally. And that goes back to self-trust, right? Because like, how do you know that what you need is not asking too much? What if the other person is telling you you're asking too much of them? How you have to know that you're not, I guess. How do you know that, It's tough. Yeah, okay, well, so that's relationship-wise, but like, how do you think doctors and caregivers in a medical setting could better set us up for that? Both all of us and also our, partners and caregivers.
Not everyone turned and looking at me.
I'm already turned
Like,
that way.
You've been at this for 6 years, though, Tora. Personally, my doctors, it was just super important for them to like quickly connect me with resources. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, my doctor was not doing that. Like, it was definitely the community. That is where you're going to get most connected. Like, how I have found out about things like this and, most support groups and such is my community. And then I go back and tell my doctor about those things so that she has it at the ready to share with other patients now, But also social workers are huge. Social worker, it might be a nurse navigator. Mine were life-saving. Just 3 months into my diagnosis, I, went and found the social worker at my cancer center, and I was just a mess sitting across from this woman, and I was like, listen, this is the situation. Like, my marriage is not good, but I've just been like a stay-at-home mom for the entirety of my marriage, and and now I'm living with cancer, so I can't imagine going and like working full time. How do I do this? Like, give me resources. And she did, She helped me find community. She helped me find it. Like, listen, I was applying to any grant that I could get my hands on, even if it just like got us through, covered bill, covered rent, whatever. And that was my lifeline, like, connecting. And again, just like with anyone in your life, if you don't make your needs known, they're not going to get met, and you can't just shrink. And to speak to what you were saying about, if someone's saying that you're like asking too much, yes and no, because you can be asking too much of them. Like, maybe they're not the right one, but it doesn't mean that your need isn't valid. Like, maybe you need to take it elsewhere, or maybe your person that you're asking is too overwhelmed and they can be a part of your support system, but they're feeling like they're like the whole support system, which isn't, sustainable for anyone.
Yeah, communication, right? It has to be an open line. Yeah.
Yep.
Did you want to?
Yeah, I'd like to speak on this a little bit too, because I think our relationships with our doctors, cancer doesn't just end after treatment, after surgery. We're constantly screening ourselves, going for screenings, going for follow-ups, and it was difficult to kind of see some of my doctors being in my life long term. One of them in particular would come into the room and greet my partner before greeting me. And I was sitting there in my gown like, you're okay, I'm glad you major hellos and your buddy making them feel comfortable, but I should be the star of the show, and I struggled with that with my relationship with his medical trauma. It took a lot of the spotlight off of me and in the actual doctor's office rooms during the entire first year of my diagnosis. I had to carry him through my appointments, and it made me second chair. And so I just really started to understand that I needed to command that space, that it was my space. And my oncologist, I'm obsessed with her. She is like a best friend to me. She comes in the room, she hugs me, and the first thing she does is ask me how things are going in my life, unrelated to cancer. And I was able to share with her throughout the entire 1.5 year journey that I've been on in my relationship roller coaster, going up and down, and being able to share with her the times when I was at my lowest and my darkest and going through the hardest times. She even puts them in the notes. And when I was getting my metastatic diagnosis, she called me with the PET scan results, and the next thing she said to me was, when you come in for your diagnosis appointment, do not bring your partner, because this is going to be an important conversation where you need to be focused on you, and you need to have people there that are listening for you and not thinking about how it's going to affect them. And that was a really big turning point for me, to understand that I do have to put myself first in this space.
That's incredible. Yeah.
She's amazing.
That's huge. Give us all her name.
Come to Jersey. She's a little booked, but I'll recommend her to you.
So yeah, so what it sounds like to me is self-empowerment, going back to that, advocating for ourselves. It's less about like setting the other person up for success. I mean, that needs to happen, but I think that is not necessarily our responsibility, is what it sounds like, right? Yeah. We are our first responsibility.
Yeah. But sometimes we have to ask for that.
Right? Yeah, you do. But yeah, I mean, listen, no one's taught how to deal with this when we're kids. No one's like, when you get older, stuff might get really hard, and here's how to deal with it. It's like it happens, and then you have to figure it out as you go, So, yes, life, guys, life, right? Okay. Do we want to get into navigating boundaries with dating and meeting new people?
How much time do you have?
We have 30 minutes. We're going to do 15-minute Q&A, so we got about 15 minutes.
Maggie's gonna take it all. Just kidding. I'm kidding. Well, I'd say more so for me. I guess my diagnoses just kind of brought to the forefront something that I've already known about myself, but maybe haven't really given as much thought. I am quite intentional with who I share my information with, and I did carry my diagnoses the exact same way. I did not feel comfortable sharing every bit of my information with every person in my life. I intentionally choose in whom will be a part of my information because it's a safe space, and most likely a space also that allows me to continually feel the best I possibly can. My most important thing was keeping both my mental and my physical space as healthy as it possibly can be to allow me to get through everything that I need to go through. So yeah, that is definitely important to me. Boundaries is important, without a doubt, and making sure that I stick to what it is that I need for myself to stay in the best mental space I could be in.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's funny because we were laughing about this earlier because I have like a completely different approach.
It's good. We get both, we get a little bit of everything.
Totally different.
So I'm 27 years old. I'm single, navigating what life post-mastectomy looks like. I'm at the beginning of my egg freezing journey as a single woman. I felt like meeting with doctors throughout my journey. A lot of it was, well, where's your partner? Do you want to wait for a partner? Well, who's going to take care of you after? How are you not going to work? I had pushback on my non-nipple sparing because they're like, you're so young, like, don't you still want those? Like, what if your partner wants them in the future? So I felt like a lot of my experience was shifted around, like, your partner who doesn't even exist yet.
That's insane.
Which I just thought was so crazy. I was like, no, I left him in the ditch, and I'm here by myself. So I'm calling the shots here, and it's my body. I'm living with it forever, and whoever I meet one day is going to be perfectly happy with the decisions that I have made for myself. So I go about it. Thank you. And I feel like I took a really long time to be able to get to that point of being so confident in the decisions that I've made. And I think that has shifted in how I go about dating. I'm a very, very, very open book. I'm open on social media. I literally make money on TikTok from talking about dating and what intimacy is post-mastectomy as a young pre-viver. I could not find anybody out there talking about what do you look like when you don't have nipples? What happens if you keep your nipples? How does sex change after a mastectomy? How does dating change? Because it does. And I couldn't really find anybody that was single and as young as I was. So I felt like that's why I decided to take up that space. And I've kind of tried different routes and played with what feels right for me. So I am very much so like, I'll lay it all out there. And these are my decisions. I always say, do you have any questions? Because I feel like it kind of takes the taboo out of like talking about my boobs on like a first, second, or third date. Because, I'm dating men in their early 30s/late 20s. Like, that's brutal. Their brains are not even fully developed yet.
Was it like 28 or something?
No, I think it's 25, but that's a lie. That's a lie. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. But I think like comes along with that is, which we were talking about earlier, is like how much of is it my job to educate, which is why I do like to kind of lay it all on the table. It's a huge part of my life. I'm really involved in the breasties and forest and advocacy. I post on social media about it, and so I just kind of lay it all out there, and I say, like, do you have any questions? Because trust me, people have questions, especially if they have no experience in the breast cancer world. You do sometimes get maybe some like weird questions, but typically I feel like people have good intentions and they don't want to offend you, which is why they don't ask questions. So I think that's why it's a good space to just be like, let's talk about it. What do you want to know? This is a non-judgmental space. I will correct them if they say something accidentally offensive, but typically they're not trying to be offensive. They're actually curious, just like I was curious before I had my mastectomy. So I feel like I try to just take the taboo out of it as much as possible, and that's why I'm just so direct about it. Hey, Maggie, 27, no nipples, what's up? What are your questions? And I also feel like along with that comes like confidence. Like, I think if you're confident about the decisions that you've made, people don't question it. It's a lot about how you present it, and it's taken me a long time to get to this place that I am. Definitely was not always this way, but so I take a little bit of a different approach. Definitely still boundaries to protect yourself, but lay it all out and take it or leave it.
People should be so lucky to be with you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Do you guys mind if I get like a little bit dark, a little bit raw, a little bit real for a second?
Let's do it.
I just feel like there's so, you go to panels and people are like, it took me a long time, but I'm here, now I'm here. Like, I want to know what that looked like. Like, what did that look? For me, it was messy. It was dark. I had panic attacks. I ended up in the emergency room because I was getting off pain medication from my bilateral mastectomy, and I was taking kratom to supplement the pain and like the menopause stuff. I accidentally took bad kratom, ended up in the ER. That was like rock bottom. I've never told anyone this actually before. You guys are the first. And Breastie TV. Hi. I've never said that before. But that was. It was a really low point for me, but like, you know, I had to go through it. I had to sit there alone in it, and like, it was dark, it was messy, it was sad, but I'm a stronger and better person now, and that is why I can sit up here and like talk about this stuff now. If you don't feel comfortable speaking on this, absolutely do not have to. I'm just wanting to put it out there because I'm not used to hearing that on panels.
Yeah, it was really rough. I'm not gonna lie. Ending a decade-long marriage was really hard. I don't think I talk about it a lot, but literally right before my diagnosis, I decided, like, you know what? I'm just gonna end things. Like, I had tried to have a conversation again and again with my ex-husband, and it could not be a conversation. And finally, I was like, you know what? I actually can just leave. Like, I can just decide. Like, I don't have to have another person's permission. Like, a relationship is like an agreement between two people. But, you know, I was like, oh, I don't have to get him to a point of understanding, like, why this isn't working, you know, to, like, see that. And I was like, I can figure it out and just leave. And then I got my diagnosis, and it rocked my world. And I felt like, you know, when things are changing and you don't have control, you just want to grasp at any control you might have. And so I didn't want to end things anymore. I wanted to, you know, have him there. I wanted him to step up and be the person I needed him to be and be a good caregiver. But I learned very quickly that someone doesn't magically transform into, like, a great caregiver, you know, or start showing up for you in the really hard times if they weren't, you know, showing up for you in just the basic day-to-day. And so I still had to choose myself and make that really hard decision to start over and, you know, live on my own, like with my children, but on my own. Like, now I'm head of a household and the adult there, and I mean, I live with cancer, so there are plenty of times where I was like, what if, you know, I have like a really bad day? Who's gonna be like taking care of things and all of that? And it was really hard. I still have 2 therapists. I'm always recommending therapy. I got a regular talk therapist, and then I got a trauma therapist.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? Those are they're like how I get through things. I jokingly call them like the co-parents. Because I'm like, everything I do, I'm like, what do you do? You know, like, get me through this. I'm raising a bunch of girls, so I need all the help I could get. But it was really dark and really hard, especially getting to a point of, like, thinking that I was worthy of, like, putting myself out there, instead of at the beginning where I kind of felt like, all right, well, if I'm going to choose to end my marriage, then I guess I'm choosing to, like, be alone, you know? And I knew that I didn't want that. As much as it could have been like, well, I'll just be alone and, like, focus on kids or this or, you know. But that wasn't something I wanted. I love everyone on this stage has such different, like, stories and everything. And I mean, I'm a thriver, so I also was taking into consideration, like, I don't want to start dating someone, like, who knows, like, how long I'm going to be around? Like, there's the dark thoughts, you know? It's like, I don't know how long, you know? But ultimately, I really just started to have the point of view that, like, I always talk about that we have this, like, romanticized illusion of forever, right? And, like, nobody can really truly offer anyone forever. Like, no one truly has that to give. And if you believe that, like, relationships, people can come into your life for just a season and it can still be deeply meaningful, that's how I started to look at it and at myself. And I still knew, like, who I was, and the Deltra that I am, like, cancer didn't completely change that, and I was still someone worthy of being in a relationship with. Now, I had been married for 10 years, so I can't tell you about that. I was out here just looking for love and romance, you know. I was like, I'm trying to just have fun. But as it often works out, you know, I found more than that. But it was because of how, you know, it's very cliche, but how deeply I fell in love with myself first, and knowing what I wanted and what I was willing to put up with. And also, a big part of it was not leaning on someone, which sounds really weird, but my support system was so solid. Like, mom, sister, I mean, just shout out to women, because really women were the ones like there for me, you know, and still are. I love us. But and my partner today, who I've been with for 4 years now, always says, like, seeing how I took care of my own stuff and that I had like a good solid support system around me, despite the fact that I had a lot of stuff going on, made him feel like he wanted to be a part of that. You know, it never felt like all of that, like I'm coming into dating, like this is all my baggage. We all have baggage, you know. It's just how you carry it. So.
So, sorry, gathering my thoughts because you just killed that. The dark. The dark lasts for a while sometimes, and I think we're afraid to not only share that with people in our lives, but we're afraid to acknowledge it for ourselves. And being people pleasers and being positive people and wanting to show people that we can go through really difficult times and still have a smile on our face and just get through it and keep moving forward. We put this expectation on ourselves that we have to just do it, just bite the bullet and truck through, and then by the end, you know, you'll be okay. And I think I told myself for so long, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I think we all use that word fine way too much. And I thought in my relationship when I was struggling that this is who I chose. And so it would be fine eventually, but I have to stick it out. You know, we are engaged and I got cancer and he stuck by my side. So we're going to get married, of course, and we're going to have the kids that we made out of the embryos. And all these things were kind of lined up for our future that I didn't see an option to get out of it. I didn't think it was an option. I thought I would just shatter everybody's picture of what our relationship should be and what they thought it was. And so I struggled in silence for the longest time. I would joke about the struggles in my relationship, but still, like, we painted this perfect picture. We went to all of our family gatherings, we spent time with our friends, and it was the cancer warrior and her warrior partner that stuck by her side as if, like, that was a medal to be won. And coming to camp and being in community, being able to show up in these spaces and talk about these kinds of things so candidly, it was like a jolt to the system. It was like so foreign to me to talk about such difficult things with complete strangers. And it was like I was one person when I was here, and then I would go home and I would be the person that everybody else thought I was at home. And I found that I couldn't even talk about camp with people in my life. They would ask me, oh, how was it? And I would just be like, it's good, it was great, it was fine.
Fine,
It was fine. Because what actually happened here is that I broke down. I cried the hardest I've ever cried in my life last year at Camp Breastie. And I went home a complete shell of myself, and I thought I was at the lowest point in my life. And what I was able to do when I got home was pack up my bags and leave. And I left for a couple months, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. But what I realized was that I had just spent 72 hours with people that I met within that time frame, and they loved me and accepted me, and I didn't have to pretend to be anything that I wasn't. And I didn't want to leave to go home. I didn't want to go there because I knew once I got home I had to put a mask back on, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I left, and it was scary, and I was afraid that people were going to be mad at me, and I thought that, you know, they were going to think that I was giving up on my marriage. And for me, it was like it was either give up on my marriage or give up on myself. And I chose myself. And And I broke out in hives for a couple weeks because my nervous system was re-regulating, and it was the toughest time, but it ended up like I was able to actually see clearly what I needed to do, and I did go back home, and I'm still working on the steps on what it is to end a marriage and a relationship, and that control of how we want it to end is still a tough part that I'm working through, but I know that we have the power to take it, and the little steps count sometimes more than the biggest ones. So the dark is real.
The dark is real. Thank you all for sharing. Seriously, appreciate that. Did you want to? Okay. All right. I think we're going to open up the floor to some Q&A. Are we ready with the microphones? All right. Give it 2 seconds. So yeah, we'll just do raise your hand. Oh, okay, we're ready. Okay. Yes. We got a question right over here. All right, I'm coming.
Hi. First of all, I want to say thank you all. That was just inspirational, honestly. I am a 2-time marriage survivor. So when I was diagnosed at 48, I was already divorced by then. One of my kids was in college, and the other one lives on her own. So I had a support system, I thought, and it didn't exactly work that way. But I worked through it. Anyway, my question to you is, this is the hardest thing I've had to work on, and I'm still having difficulty with it, is putting myself first. So you have 5 daughters. I have 2, and they're adults. I don't know how to navigate myself, especially because I just received another diagnosis as well. So now I have to figure out this time is going to be different. My kids are home. They're going to help, but I don't know how to put myself first. How do you do that?
Have you ever heard the phrase "F them kids"? Because you're gonna have to get comfortable with that a little bit, okay? You're gonna have to be okay with people judging you, family, society.
Been there,
I get
done
it
that.
all. Yeah, of people feeling like, oh, she be gone, or she does this or that. But you're allowed to have a life, and you only get one, and it has to be a lot of bit about yourself. Genuinely, you don't want people at your funeral. I mean, people think it sounds nice when you're at a funeral, so it's like they always was doing stuff for other people. And no, no, because it was your one, wild and precious life. And so it should become stories about you that inspire other people, but not just all about what you were doing. That was all about living your life for other people, including the people that you brought into this world. You don't have to pretend to be strong for your kids. I don't do it. It's very important to me that my kids know that I'm not a one-dimensional character called mom. Like I'm a real person with interests and emotions. And I always tell people when we fake it for our kids, we're robbing them of learning compassion. They need to know that I'm not always at 100. I can't always show up completely. Somebody else can do a meal, even if you're 10 and you gotta microwave it. You will survive. I'm having a moment. Like, I need to not cook today. And so it's really just practice. It's putting it in practice, because I had 10 whole years of my marriage of not putting it in practice, of constantly being like, I come at, I got to make sure that my husband is good. I got to make sure house and kids and everything. And then finally it was just like, oh, wow, cancer came knocking. It's like, I don't have time to mess around. And in reality, nobody does, And so it's just forming a new habit. It's just even something small. Like I love to say, always have something to look forward to, and I do. There is always something on my calendar, even if it's simple. And so just start doing little things for yourself and get your family used to that. Like you got this coming up. My kids were like, oh, dang, you going somewhere? You got camp?
Italy
Do that.
in August.
Good. Yes. Enjoy. But yeah, it's just a process. It's learning a new habit. It truly is, because for some weird reason, society, we act like your life is just not your own. Like, yes, do for others, but a lot of what you do for yourself pours over into others. Like, I want my daughters to see me doing awesome adulting. I don't want them to grow up and think that being mom, wife, all of that comes absolutely before them just being a person. So, thank you.
Sounds like you said, yeah. It's also setting a good example for them about how they should, treat themselves as well. Yeah. Do you guys want to, do we have another question, or do you guys want to? Okay. All right, yes, right there.
So I have just kind of started to float the idea to close friends and family that maybe a separation is something that I'm kind of considering. And I have what many people refer to as a golden retriever husband, and he is great, and he's been by my side through all of it, and people don't really understand why I would leave such a fantastic partner and caretaker. And I don't really know what to say when people say, oh, but he stayed with you through cancer, why would you leave him? I just stop talking about it.
I think it's okay to say, like, he is a great partner and he's not my partner. That's okay. We meet so many people in our lives that are so wonderful and do help us at a specific time, and we're great caretakers, whatever that may be, and that's fine. It doesn't always have to be like a big, that asshole cheated on me type of situation. It can just be like, this is not my partner anymore. We grew apart. We have different wants. Like, as you get older, things naturally come up and things naturally change. Like, if someone wants kids, if someone doesn't want kids, like, if you want to move states, like, anything like that can really cause kind of that separation. It doesn't have to be a big thing, and it also doesn't discount that he was a great caretaker for you also. And also, just because he was your caretaker does not mean that he owes that spot of being your husband. I think it's great that he took great care of you, but you do not deserve to settle just because you feel like, oh, well, he helped me through cancer. Fuck that. You got yourself through cancer. So take care of yourself and whatever feels right for you.
Thank you.
And I just want to add to that, one thing I had to learn in therapy is that not everybody is going to understand, not everybody has to understand, and you don't always have to explain.
Yes.
Agree. Don't owe anybody anything. Okay. Yes.
I just want to say this has been so beautiful, and just your transparency. It's not easy to be this open and honest, and it is appreciated. Like, you guys have touched me, and I know you've touched everybody else in here, so thank you so much, because I know this is not easy. It was a question and a comment. I was talking with one of my friends, and it was kind of a joke, and I was like, well, I have a mastectomy, I only have one breast, who's gonna want me? Kind of was a joke, kind of serious. And she was like, listen, I'm 48. She was like, listen, we're at the age in our lives, you're not dating a 25-year-old, you're dating a grown man. He's probably gonna have dealt with some shit in his life too. So he's not gonna be like, oh, and if he is, he's not the one for you. Like, so, I don't know, that just like really touched me, because it can feel a little like, I still wear a surgical bra, I have like the ABD pads, like, and she was like, it's life. Like, so do you guys have any, I don't know, tips about like moving forward? And I mean, I think you kind of already answered it, but I don't know, I'm a little nervous about it because I haven't had reconstruction and I don't feel like my whole self. So, yeah. Like, do you guys have any tips when you're not feeling, like, I'm not feeling like, I'm cancer-free and fabulous. I don't feel like that. So, how do you like?
I mean, I feel similarly, because I was not able to save my nipples, and I have not gotten them reconstructed or tattooed yet, because I'm still figuring out what to do. So, like, navigating dating now and having to, not having to, but like thinking about, do I explain this? Do I not explain it? What point do I bring it up? Like, it's scary, but in my experience, the people that I have been with have not cared, and they have been this is in my words, so lucky to have even been there in this area. Like, you know, whoever sees your one breast is so lucky to see that one breast, you know? And I just think it comes down to you feeling beautiful yourself, you know? I don't know. I'm still navigating it myself, but
This is like maybe a little spicy tip for you. After my mastectomy, so I'm 27, I have no nipples, I do have reconstruction, so I have implants, but no nipples. It really kind of throws you off for a second until you get used to it. Throw on a really cute lingerie set, a tank top that you feel great in. Like, just do something that you're gonna feel really good in. Nobody even has to see it. But sometimes it just gives you like that little like bad bitch energy boost that you need. Like, I'm fucking here, I'm taking up space, this is who I am, and I'm proud of it. So find those small things that you can do that make you feel that way. And I feel like that really comes off in your personality and how you present yourself. So yeah, just find stuff that you feel good in, feel good doing. Find hobbies that you love. Spend time with people that you love. And you'll realize that people respect the fuck out of us if you demand it. And demand it.
We have time for one more.
I just wanted to address whoever was behind me that had the great caretaker, and people don't understand because he was such a great caretaker. A great caretaker on the outside is not necessarily a great caretaker to the person going through it. They can be smothering, they can be, you know, and everybody else sees, oh, he's taking you for walks, oh, he's doing this, oh, he's doing that. When you just want him to go away. You know, like when I was, my first diagnosis, I had a fever, and he was my husband, who, he is great, but he was just so on top of me. And he was scheduled to go on a business trip, and I was told by the doctors, if you get a fever, you go right to the emergency room because you could die. And I needed him to go on that business trip. So I said nothing about my fever. I went to sleep hoping it would just break and go away, which it did, because obviously I'm here. But what someone thinks is a great caregiver isn't necessarily what you needing a caregiver is, if that makes sense.
amazing. Well, thank you to our panelists. Give a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you guys for sharing your stories. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for sharing your stories and for being here. And thank you to the Breasties for hosting this weekend. This is amazing. Yeah.
All right, give it up for them one more time. Maggie, Deltra, Stacy, Karen, and Anna. And in just a few minutes, we have our final panel of the evening, which is all things menopause, so stick around.
You guys are all set. Fantastic job.